Maybe there wasn't a moment you can point to. No decision. No dramatic turning away. Just life got loud, prayers got shorter, and one day you realized God felt far away without you ever choosing that. And now there's this belief sitting underneath everything. I need to fix myself first. I need to be different before I go back. That's what this video is about. By the time we finish, you're going to have words for the prayer you didn't know how to start, and a different understanding of what going back to God actually requires. I know this place because I lived in it for almost 3 years. Not a rupture, a drift. The phone before anything else in the morning. The exhaustion that made prayer feel like something I'd have to earn first. What I discovered on the other side of that might change what you think starting over even means. Stay with me. Real quick before we begin, I post a new prayer here every morning. If this is something you want to come back to, subscribe. It'll be here waiting for you. And if this found you at a moment you needed it, a like helps it reach someone else who's in that same place right now. Now let's bring this to God. I want to take you back to something. It was a Tuesday morning. I was 36. The alarm went off at 6. And before my feet even touched the floor, my phone was already in my hand. Not because I needed to, just because that's what I did. Every morning, for months. Scroll through emails, check the news, look at what had happened while I was asleep. By the time I got up and made coffee, I'd already been somewhere else for 20 minutes. And somewhere in that season, I'm not sure exactly when, the prayers stopped. Not all at once. It wasn't dramatic. It was more like, they got shorter. 10 minutes became 2. 2 became a quick God, help me get through today on the way to the car. And then even that started to feel like something I was saying out of habit rather than out of anything real. I was busy. Work was demanding things from me I didn't know how to give. I was tired in a way that sleep wasn't fixing. And God, the God I'd talked to for years, the one I'd built my mornings around, started to feel like background noise in a life that had gotten very, very loud. I didn't decide to drift. I just stopped choosing not to. And for a while, I told myself it was just a season, that I'd get back to it when things settled down, when the pressure eased, when I had more to give. But things didn't settle down. And one evening I sat down and realized something that didn't make the distance easier. It made it harder. That evening I was sitting at the kitchen table. It was a Sunday, late, around 9. The house was quiet for the first time all week. And I remember just stopping, putting my phone face down, and realizing I couldn't remember the last time I had actually prayed. Not a quick word on the way somewhere. Actually prayed. And my first instinct wasn't to pray right then, it was shame. This quiet voice that started listing everything, how long it had been, how many mornings I'd chosen the phone over anything else, how I'd let weeks go by without opening my Bible, without sitting in silence, without even trying. And the longer that list got, the further away God felt. And the further away God felt, the harder it seemed to even begin. I told myself I'd get back to it when I felt more settled, when I was less exhausted, when I had something worth bringing. What I didn't realize then, what I couldn't see from inside that moment, is that I was waiting for a door to open that was never actually closed. I just couldn't see the handle anymore. And every day I waited to feel ready. The waiting got heavier. And looking back at that season, at that kitchen table, at that shame, I learned the first thing I want to share with you. It sounds simple, but I had to live through that to really understand it. Here's what I learned from that kitchen table. Guilt that doesn't move you isn't conviction, it's just weight. Because I sat there feeling terrible about the distance. And I didn't pray. I just felt bad. And somewhere I had convinced myself that feeling bad was the same thing as doing something about it. Like the shame itself was a form of faithfulness. It wasn't. The guilt was real. But what it was doing, what I didn't see at the time, was giving me something to hide behind. As long as I was busy feeling like I'd failed, I didn't have to actually take a step. The shame was loud enough to fill the space where a prayer could have been. And I think a lot of us do this. We wait until we feel worthy of returning before we return. We treat the guilt like a waiting room, like we have to sit in it long enough before we're allowed back in. But that's not how this works. The door isn't locked from God's side. It never was. But understanding that, even just beginning to understand it, didn't make the next part easier, because the story wasn't done, and what happened next caught me completely off guard. A few weeks after that Sunday night, I woke up at 4 a.m. No alarm, no reason, just awake. That specific kind of awake where you know immediately that sleep isn't coming back, and the anxiety was there, already. Before I was even fully conscious, it was sitting on my chest. The kind that doesn't have one clear reason. It's just everything, compressed into a weight that you can't name or put down. My hand went toward my phone, automatic, like it always did. And I stopped. I don't know why. I still can't fully explain it. But I put the phone back down, and I just sat there on the edge of the bed in the dark. And for the first time in I don't know how long, I didn't reach for anything. And then I said something out loud. Quietly, almost embarrassing how small it was. God, I don't even know how to start. That was it. No eloquence, no theology, just that one sentence in a dark room at 4 a.m. from someone who had run out of reasons to keep waiting. Nothing dramatic happened. No feeling rushed in. The anxiety didn't lift. The room didn't change. But something did. Something in me made a decision, not to feel ready, but to stop waiting until I was. And it was in that moment, not after, not later when things got easier, but right there in the dark, that I understood something I had never really understood before. The most important thing this whole story taught me. Here's what I understood in that dark room. I had been treating returning to God like a project, something I needed to prepare for. Get my habits right first, get my heart in order first, find the right words first, and then go back. But that's backwards. You don't return to God when you're ready. You return. And the returning is what makes you ready. The transformation isn't the entrance requirement. It's what happens after you walk through the door. There's a story in Luke about a son who leaves, wastes everything, ends up with nothing, and when he finally decides to go back, he doesn't go back changed. He goes back broken, still carrying the smell of where he'd been, and his father doesn't wait for him to clean up first. The father sees him coming from far away and runs. God doesn't need a better version of you to show up. He needs the version that shows up. That's it. That's the whole thing. And I had spent months, sitting in the waiting room of my own guilt, convinced I needed to earn my way back to a door that had never been closed. That single sentence in the dark, I don't even know how to start. That was enough. That was the first step. And it was enough. With that starting to settle in me, something shifted, and I began to rebuild, slowly, imperfectly, but differently than anything I had tried before. Before I tell you how that went, I want to take just a moment, before we continue, what I just described, that moment of showing up without feeling ready, without the right words, without having it together. That's exactly what the next 30 days can look like. Not perfectly, but consistently. I put together something called 30 Days of Faith, a guided prayer devotional. It's 30 days of prayers and reflections, built for people who are exactly where I was in that room, not for people who have it figured out, for people who are ready to start showing up, even when they don't feel ready. If that's where you are right now, the link is in the description. It's there whenever you need it. Now, let me tell you what the rebuilding actually looked like, because it wasn't what I expected, so I started small, smaller than I thought counted. The next morning, after that 4 a.m., I didn't open my phone first. I sat on the edge of the bed, in the same dark, and I said the same thing I'd said the night before. God, here we are again. That was it. 5 words. No structure, no plan, no Bible open, no list of things to ask for. Just presence, just showing up. I did that for a week. Some mornings it felt like something. Most mornings it felt like nothing. But I started to notice that the criterion I was using had changed. I wasn't asking, did I feel it today? I was asking, did I show up today? And those are completely different questions. After about 2 weeks, I added something. I'd open the Bible, not to study, not to find answers, just to read a few lines slowly, like sitting with someone without needing to talk much. Some days a sentence would land. Most days I'd close it and not be sure I'd taken anything in. And I kept going anyway. The phone was still a pull. Some mornings I reached for it before I caught myself. Some mornings I didn't catch myself at all, but I stopped treating those mornings as proof that I'd failed. They were just mornings. The next morning was still available. But there's something about that rebuilding season I haven't told you yet. Something I almost left out because it's not the part anyone wants to hear. But it might be the most important thing in this whole story. Here's the part nobody tells you. It took longer than I thought it would. A lot longer. There was a week, about 6 weeks into that rebuilding, where everything went quiet again. Not because I stopped showing up. I was showing up. 5 minutes every morning, phone down, same as before, but the connection I thought I'd started to feel just wasn't there, like I was talking to a wall, and I almost stopped. Again, and I think a lot of people do stop there, because nobody warned them that this was part of it, that the path back isn't a straight line upward, that there are dry seasons inside the rebuilding, not just before it, that you can be doing everything right and still have weeks where it feels like nothing is working. What I had to learn, slowly, the hard way, is that feeling and faithfulness are not the same thing. The days I felt nothing weren't proof that God wasn't there. They were just dry. And dry seasons end, but only if you don't quit during them. Nobody puts that in the testimony. Nobody stands up and says, and then 6 weeks in, I almost gave up again. But that's the real story. And if you go into this expecting a straight line, you'll read the first flat stretch as failure. And it isn't. It's just the road. But knowing that, holding on to that, I kept going. And the story did have an ending. Let me tell you how it actually finished. That season ended. Not with a moment of clarity. Not with a feeling that told me everything was okay. It ended the way it started, quietly. One morning I realized I'd been waking up and reaching for God before reaching for my phone. Not every morning, but most. And I hadn't planned that. It had just become what I did. The anxiety didn't disappear. I want to be honest about that. There are still mornings when it's the first thing I feel. But something changed in what I do with it. I stopped waiting for it to leave before I prayed. I started praying inside it, with it still present, still heavy, still unnamed sometimes. That was the shift. Not the removal of the weight. The change in what I did while carrying it. My relationship with God didn't go back to what it was before those 3 years. It went somewhere different. Something more honest. Less performance. Less waiting to feel worthy. More just showing up. Again and again. Some days with words. Some days with nothing but presence. I still have dry weeks. I still reach for the phone sometimes before I catch myself. The rebuilding didn't produce a perfect version of me. It produced a more honest one. And honestly, I think that's what God was after the whole time. I didn't tell you all of this because my story is special. I told you because everything it taught me, those 3 things I learned the hard way, they don't belong to my story. They belong to anyone who's trying to find their way back. And that's what I want to leave you with now. So here's what I want to leave you with. 3 things, not theory, what this story actually taught me, translated into something you can use today, wherever you are, whatever your version of that kitchen table looks like. First, check what you're doing with the guilt. If you've been feeling bad about the distance between you and God, but that feeling hasn't moved you toward Him, it's not conviction, it's just weight. Guilt that doesn't lead somewhere is just a reason to stay still. Notice it, and then don't let it be the reason you wait another day. Second, lower the threshold for what counts as showing up. You don't need the right words. You don't need a quiet room and an open Bible and 30 minutes of focused prayer. You need one honest sentence. God, I don't know how to start. That counts. That's enough to begin. The condition for returning isn't readiness. It's the decision to return. That's all. Third, when the dry weeks come, don't read them as failure. And they will come. Even after you've started. Even after something begins to feel real. There will be flat stretches where nothing seems to land. Change your question from "Am I feeling it?" to "Am I showing up?" Those are different questions with very different answers. And if you can only take one thing from everything you heard today, let it be this. You don't have to be ready. You just have to show up. That's the whole door. And it's been open the whole time. Maybe you can't change yesterday. But with God, you can start again today. Before we close, you made it through this whole thing. And I don't think that was by accident. I think you were here because something in you already knew it was time. If the 30 Days of Faith devotional feels like the right next step, 30 days of prayers and reflections, built exactly for the kind of returning we talked about today, the link is in the description. It's there when you're ready. And if today taught you anything, you know that ready isn't a requirement. If this video found someone you know, someone who's been carrying that same distance, that same guilt, that same waiting to feel worthy before going back, share it with them. Sometimes the most honest thing we can do for someone we love is put the right words in front of them. And if something landed for you today, leave a comment. Tell me where you are. I read them, and there are people here who need to know they're not the only ones in that place. Subscribe if you want something to come back to. There's a new prayer here every morning, and some mornings that might be exactly what you need. I'll see you tomorrow. God, here we are again.